Hey, what's up everybody? In this video, I'm going to review the other Titanic Tsum, Rose DeWitt Bukater. Rose's drop rate is identical to Jack's drop rate, so depending on when you're playing or when you're watching this video, the drop rates may vary. So during this second lucky time, the drop rates for Rose, or for me at least, is going to be 50% because I do have all the other Tsums maxed out. Now the ability description for Rose is going to be Jack Tsums that can be connected with Rose Tsums appear. Connecting them clears surrounding Tsums. Now this doesn't explain all of her abilities because Rose does have a sub ability or a secondary ability, which I'll get into a little bit later. The game demonstration that you're currently watching right now is a skill level 1 game demonstration, so let's get into her stats. In order for you to activate her ability, you're going to need to clear anywhere between 20 to 25 rows off the screen, and this number will depend on what skill level you have her at. Her minimum score is 180 with a maximum score of 964. So Rose isn't necessarily going to be amazing for score, but it's pretty good. It's in the middle range. It's not going to be your best score earner, but it's also not going to be your worst one. And if you want to get Rose to skill level 6, you're going to need to get a total of 32 copies of her from the premium box, or you can use skill tickets as well, depending on how many skill tickets you have. And Rose might be a candidate for that. It's actually on the lower end to get to skill level 6, and she is pretty good at skill level 6, so we'll get into that a little bit later. But before we take a look at the skill chart, if you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please consider subscribing. Your subscription really helps me out a lot. I also recently started a line group, so if you need additional friends for the game or need someone to send you hearts or just need help with the game, consider joining this line group. It is pretty helpful for those who just recently joined the game and needs a little bit of boost. So let me know in the line chat if you need additional hearts or need help with missions. I'm more than happy to help you out. Same with the members in the group can also help you out as well. Alright, so back to Rose. So let's take a look at the skill chart. Every single time you level up Rose DeWitt Bukater, your Tsums that's needed to activate the ability is going to go down by 1. And also every single time you go up a skill level, the ability time is also going to increase by 0.5 seconds. And at first, you might not see the difference because it's very minimal. But if you look at skill level 1 compared to skill level 6, you're almost doubling the amount of ability time. And this is pretty significant because the more time you have during the ability time, the longer chains you can make, earning you additional coins because of that. So it might not feel like it's a lot, but once you start playing, you'll realize that because of those additional seconds that's built into the gameplay, you'll be able to clear additional Tsums per ability, also allowing you to activate Rose's secondary ability. So let's get into it and take a look at Rose at skill level 1, 2, and 3. And again, the difference here is that the amount of Tsums needed to activate her ability. So for skill level 1, you need 25, 24 for skill level 2, and then skill level 3, you need 23. The abilities will last a total of 3.5 seconds at skill level 1, 4 seconds for skill level 2, and skill level 3, 4.5 seconds. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about strategy for Rose. So Rose is not necessarily super easy to use. You kind of have to spot chains relatively quickly. So if you sometimes get brown Tsums on the screen that blends in with Rose, those are not ideal situations. But for these 3 gameplays that you're currently watching right now for skill level 1, 2, and 3, the color schemes are pretty different, so it's very easy to spot. And what I also like about Rose's ability is that all of the Tsums that you're supposed to clear is actually really shiny during the ability time, which makes it a lot easier. I actually typically don't like these abilities where you have to connect long Tsums during the ability time to use the ability effectively. I would say I'm not the slowest player in the world, but I'm also not the fastest. But the good thing about this ability is that during the ability time, they do start glowing, or Jack and Rose starts glowing. So all you really need to do is find out where the chains are and try to connect them. And one really good tip here is when the ability is activated, for a split second, it'll only show you Rose and Jack. So during that time, try to think, where are you going to swipe? And that leads me to my second tip, and that's don't necessarily focus on making the longest chain possible. Because Rose's ability does clear surrounding Tsums, you really want to focus on clearing Tsums at the top, the bottom, the left side, or the right side. You just want to make sure you clear enough on one section at a time. What's also helpful is if you have a bubble handy, you could burst the bubble when you are not in fever time to speed up the animation as well. So those are some of the quick strategies you should be using when you're using Rose. Another thing you could consider doing is using the overcharge, which essentially is spamming the ability button. Any zooms that you clear or any rows that you cleared that don't get used for the ability time will get carried over for ability time for the next charge up. So let me show you a side-by-side comparison of the abilities activated at the same time. What I really want to have you focus here is just primarily how long the ability is going to last and the shininess of these zooms. You can't really necessarily see a side-by-side comparison here because the difference here is really just a timing. But what I also want to point you to is that Rose has a secondary ability. When you activate Rose's ability, you'll notice that at the very bottom there are these 5 hearts, and they're like diamond or gem like hearts that's there. And once you completely fill up the 5 hearts, you're gonna get the secondary ability, which I'll show you here in slow motion. And you'll see that Jack and Rose will come out and do their iconic pose and then clears a, I guess you could say like a cross shape in the center and in the middle area. This position doesn't change, and what I also notice is that it doesn't increase over multiple skill levels. So what I mean by that is between skill level 1 and skill level 6, the range or the diameter or the skill size, whatever you want to call it, is going to remain the same. So it doesn't matter what skill level you have her at, the clear area is going to be the same. The only difference between all 6 of these skill level is really the duration of the ability time. So let's take a look at skill level 4, 5, and 6. And as you get into these higher skill level, you're going to have a lot more time to make those connections during the ability time. Also, it's going to require you a lot less zooms to activate the ability. For skill level 4, you're going to need 22 zooms with 5 seconds during the ability time. Skill level 5, you'll need 21 zooms with 5.5 seconds. And at skill level 6, you'll only need 20 zooms to activate her ability and have 6 seconds during the ability time. So a lot of time at skill level 6. So very same strategy, and it's actually a lot easier to execute at the higher skill levels. One thing that you want to focus on at these higher skill level is the little hearts, or the 5 hearts at the very bottom when you activate the ability. Oh, and I probably should mention the way you charge up those blue hearts is by clearing Jack and Rose. The other zooms that you clear will not charge up this second ability, so you'll only be able to charge up this special heart ability by only clearing Rose and Jack. And honestly, sometimes I feel like that secondary ability actually gets in the way because that secondary ability doesn't pause the ability time. That animation takes about like 1 to 2 seconds to play through, but in that time, the animation that plays through could eat into your ability time, which doesn't allow you to connect those chains. So sometimes I feel like they get in the way and doesn't necessarily help out too much. I prefer to just make a lot of chains during the ability time, earning me a lot more coins. I feel like that's more effective. But regardless, we have that and you can't really control it. But if you are smart with it, monitor that and maybe use the bubbles to control when that ability is activated or the secondary's ability is activated. So that way you can avoid losing out on the ability time when your bar is kind of almost charged up like you see there at skill level 6. And here's a side-by-side comparison of the ability activated at the same time. Really not much to see here except that you'll see skill level 4's animation will end first, and then skill level 5, and then skill level 6. I'll play this through again one more time in full speed, but honestly nothing too exciting here for this particular ability. What's more exciting is actually the second ability, or the secondary ability, which I'll show you here. And keep in mind the skill level 1, 2, and 3 I got in the 20s as well. So here it is again in slow motion. You'll see that same situation here, skill level 4, 5, and 6 also in the 20s. So regardless of what skill level you have her at, you're going to get the same amount of clears for the secondary ability. Overall, I would recommend you to add Rose to your collection. Rose is a decent coin earner. She's not going to be your top coin earner or anything like that. Actually, it can be depending on what other sims you have in your arsenal or in your collection. Rose can be a good coin earner, especially at the higher skill level, because you have a lot more time in the ability time. And Rose is definitely a lot better than Jack Dawson, so if you're planning to get one of these Titanic zooms and only one, you definitely want to prioritize getting Rose or spending your skill tickets on Rose over Jack. Let me show you the results for these 6 gameplays, because that's really going to help you understand why Rose is a good option. At skill level 1, I ended up with 3.5 million points, but it jumps to 11 million at skill level 6. So again, not the best score earner, but it is viable. And keep in mind, all of these gameplays were my first attempts, so with some practice you could definitely get a higher score, also more coins as well if you practice a little bit more. As for coin earnings, at skill level 1 I got 1,629, but at skill level 6 I got 5,174. And I think with some practice you could definitely get 6,000. And these are results without the coin boost as well, so these were my base coin earnings. So I think that 6,000 at skill level 6 with some practice is definitely doable. So that's my review for Rose DeWitt Bukater. I hope that you guys found this video helpful or at least entertaining. And if you guys would like to see more Tsum Tsum content just like this, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for watching.